fact, how easy was this book to write?
It was not easy at all, actually. I had to grapple with things that I'd never completely grappled with before about my family. I'd also had to think about things that I tried really hard to forget, which is why it was very important to me whenever I could to introduce some kind of humor, just to kind of leaven the horror of it all a little bit. The thing that most struck me was just how cruelly my family treated my dad. Yeah.
Just to set the background, over what period of your life and the life of Donald Trump did you really get to know each other?
You know, as a kid, I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and my aunts and uncles were frequently there. But, you know, so although we had sort of these superficial interactions, we'd play ball in the backyard or, you know, hang out in the basement. There wasn't a lot of spending time outside of that. So I can't really say that, you know, we were close or that they were my confidants or anything. So it wasn't until, in terms of Donald, it wasn't until I started writing his book in the early 90s that I got a better sense of who he was. And we actually, like, I saw him every day and we talked every day. Again, though, I can't say we were close. He's not the kind of person who gets close to people.
So how well does your experience from that period inform us about the president as he is now?
I think it's safe to assume, based on accountings of how he conducts himself in the White House, that he probably functions very similarly now to how he did at the Trump Organization when I was working there. And I mean, I wasn't there for a long time; it was a few months, but like nothing ever changed. You know, he spent a lot of his time on the phone, gossiping, chatting to reporters, and the rest of the time going through newspaper clippings about himself and writing notes to the reporter who had written the article, either, you know, because he liked it or he didn't like it. And he would make all sorts of ad hominem attacks against reporters who wrote things that he felt were negative. And there was no real sense of work ethic or what he actually did. And I think it's pretty similar in the Oval Office.
On the face of it, anyone who looks at your book would see it as a book about the president, but you've got a quote at the start from Victor Hugo, and it says, "If the soul is left in darkness, sins will be committed. The guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but the one who causes the darkness." His father?
Yeah, the reason I picked that quote is because I thought it worked in two completely different time zones, if you will. It absolutely refers to my grandfather. He was the darkness in which all of his children and even some of his grandchildren struggled and suffered. However, I think you know, Donald is doing his part to be the darkness now. My dad had died. He died at the age of 42 when I was 16. And after that, Donald, my Uncle Robert, and my Aunt Marianne were appointed to be our trustees, which means that they were supposed to look out for our financial interests, and they had some fiduciary responsibility to us. Plus, they were also, you know, supposed to be my aunt and uncles, right? Whose brother had died. So when I found out that I'd been disinherited, I wasn't that shocked. I mean, I was shocked. Don't get me wrong, but it made sense that that's the kind of thing my grandfather would do, actually. But it's that my aunts and uncles, you know, did absolutely nothing to protect me that was so striking. And as it turns out, you know, I was disowned because my grandfather had no use for my father, his son, and he hated my mother, and he didn't want my mother to get her hands on any of his money.